Reggie here, your fellow neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another impromptu live stream. And this live stream is really prompted by a couple of things. I recently put up a post on a community tab asking for recommendations for content for the channel, and I had a couple of people respond. And I also had a couple of people over the last few days send me a few messages. Uh, send me a few messages um, about some recent changes that are being made over at Marvel. I think one subscriber of the channel said it's Marvel being Marvel, and this is something I've been noodling like since the last live stream that I did last night, and I was debating whether I wanted to do it as a video or whether I wanted to do it as a live stream. And I thought that it could work better as a live stream thing versus doing it as a pre-recorded video. And what I'm essentially talking about here, well, let me back up. So people in the comment section, at least one person, maybe two, made a comment about doing something related to speculation. They were like, "Hey, you did some speculation stuff on Cosmic before. I thought it was pretty cool. Is there a chance, that you could do some more on speculation?" And so I was thinking about that. And then the other comments were related to the recent announcement by Marvel that they are making some changes to what is happening with the X-Men. And I'm an X-Men fan, right? And I really dig the series and have since I was a kid. And so they are making some changes with the X-Men. And initially I was a little put off by the Marvel's announcement to basically wipe the slate clean. And mind you, Marvel is wiping the X-Men slate clean after having wiped the X-Men slate clean once before, and well, a couple of times before, but just recently with the X-Men disassembled and all the other things that they were doing. And so the new announcement of, we are now wiping the slate clean. We are now going to start over with Jonathan Hickman. He is doing this, I think it's like a couple of months worth of a story arc called House of 10 and Power of 10. And then they're going to wipe this slate clean. They're going to come out with this House of 10, Power of 10, and then they're going to start several new series on the other side. And Jonathan Hickman is actually going to take up the helm of the flagship title, whatever that means. I don't know if that's Uncanny X-Men he's now going to own or not. Few people are popping here into the room. So Dark Knight is here. Kyler is here. Lost Comic Junkie is in the house. Chris Barrett is here. Closet Geek Vika, how you doing, brother? Simon, is here. 90 MF Comics is in the house. Who else is here? Adrian is here. Sully to Kings. Gorilla Garage. It's good to see all you guys. All the comic book soldiers in the house. Jason says, "Can't wait." What's up, people? Reggie, how you doing? It's good to see you. H-Town is here. Caleb is here. So basically, what this live stream is really, it was me trying to figure out whether I wanted to do a live stream or whether I wanted to do a pre-recorded video on a couple of things. And a few things have kind of happened over the last half day that are kind of sitting with me, and I'm kind of mulling them about. And one of them was this request to do some speculation stuff, which I made because I've done some spec stuff in the past, especially related to Cosmic, and I may revisit that. And then there was also all of these announcements related to what is happening with the X-Men title, where they're basically wiping the slate clean. Jonathan Hickman is going to come out with House of 10, Power of 10, and then basically set the X-Men on a new course. Now, mind you, they just did this with the X-Men Disassembled, that 10-part, 10-week thing that they were doing. And we thought that the X-Men were back, but I guess not. And I was initially trying to mull over my thoughts around what they are trying to do with the X-Men. And then it kind of hit me. It kind of hit me what they're essentially doing. Now that Marvel now basically has the X-Men and the Fantastic Four back, we know that. We know that Kevin Feige and others have said that it's going to be a couple of years before we actually see the X-Men as like a big team or whatever. We may see little stuff here and there, right? But they're basically saying it's going to be a couple of years, like 3 to 5 years potentially before we even really see X-Men on the big screen. And if you look at what's happening with Jonathan Hickman and what he is doing, if you look at what the Russo brothers have said about Jonathan Hickman and how the Russo brothers have essentially leveraged Jonathan Hickman's work for the MCU, right? With Infinity and Secret Wars and some of that other stuff, they've kind of leveraged and New Avengers some of his work. Essentially, what I think is happening is that Marvel is wiping the slate clean again, and Jonathan Hickman is basically going to lay a foundation for now and into the future. And that foundation that he is basically laying is going to be the foundation for the MCU X-Men. That is my thought, right? The Russo brothers have referenced Jonathan Hickman in the past. They have leveraged his work for the movies that they've done because they like the way that he tells stories. He introduced the Black Order, right? He introduced the Black Order. I think he created the Black Order. They leveraged the Black Order in Infinity Wars. I think that what we are about to witness right now is essentially the future of the X-Men in the MCU. And Jonathan Hickman has done a lot of fantastic stuff. He's worked on the Fantastic Four. He's worked on the Avengers. He's worked on, has he done X-Men stuff? I think he's done X-Men stuff. But essentially what we are seeing right now is him laying the foundation for what will potentially be leveraged in the MCU movies when we see the X-Men make their debut, and possibly even the Fantastic Four. You never know what's going to happen. There may be some good stuff there that he's already done with the Fantastic Four that they feel like they can leverage. But if you look at what Jonathan Hickman has said, he has actually made some comments. He's actually made some comments about how there hasn't been much excitement around the X-Men for quite some time. I think he used the term that they are in a nostalgic loop, in the sense that the X-Men stories that have been told over recent years are basically a regurgitation of things that have been done in the past, and or those stories that are being told now basically harken back to earlier days, harken back to the heyday. So what he is essentially trying to do is he is trying to reinterpret the X-Men franchise and then lay down a foundation that will extend into the future. And I think that is how he's essentially sold this to Marvel. He basically came in and he pitched this idea to senior leadership at Marvel, and they bought into it. And again, if you think about the Russo brothers and how they seem to like Jonathan Hickman and his writing and what he is creating in the comics, they may rely heavily upon the things that he is going to be doing in the next coming months and possibly years for the MCU. So let me pause and let me get caught up here on some of this stuff. James is saying, yeah, he's reading the Uncanny X-Men now. Not bad of a run so far, but Hickman has a chance to build a new mutant world. Yeah, so that's the thing, is I think people are, to some degree or another, enjoying this Uncanny X-Men run. And it was supposed to be the fresh start, right? You had these guys that went to the summit meeting. A bunch of the teams came together. They talked about what they would want to do. And there was one guy, I think his name was Ed. Ed basically pitched X-Men Disassembled, or whatever they called it, the extinction and all that other stuff. And this was supposed to be the fresh start. But Jonathan Hickman has sold them on some of this stuff. So I'm scrolling right down. Let me see what these comments are. Scrolling down. Mr. Q Comics, how you doing, brother? Lost Comic Junkie basically says that he agrees with the premise that I'm putting forward. He says, oh, this is Clay. Clay is saying nobody cares about the Dark Phoenix movie. It seems there's no hype. That movie may still be killed. Who knows? Maddie Joe, I think I appreciate you popping in here for a couple of moments, making a couple of points, and then I've got to get myself out of here as well. Wonder how far the reboot will go. Is it going to be a lot of new first appearances? It's going. So the way that he's kind of spoken about this thing is that he is reimagining the X-Men, I guess, reimagining it for a new world, a new time. And I don't know if we're going to see new characters. My guess is that we probably will see some. My guess is that he is going to look at the X-Men landscape and pick some of those classic characters maybe that he's always wanted to work with and that he can see a long-term future with. And my guess is that he is going to write whatever thing he is going to write with the slate of characters that he thinks has the most appeal, right, to him and or to us as readers. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I've been trying to read through some of Jonathan Hickman's stuff over the last day or so, trying to get a feel for his writing. And right now I'm actually reading, what is this book? Reading New Avengers from 2013. He did some work on this one. I'm actually reading this now, and I started reading a little bit of Secret Warriors, which is something that he also worked on. He did a little work on Avengers versus X-Men. So this guy is pretty popular. I think he's pretty well respected. And again, I think that what he is trying to do is to really lay the foundation. From Heroes to Icon says those two new X-Men books look insane. Personally, he cannot wait. And at first, I'm gonna be honest with you, I wasn't excited. I wasn't excited about those two books at all because I just thought it was another gimmick, right? Another reboot on top of a recent reboot. And I was not paying much attention to it, but it seems as if Power of 10 and House of 10 are basically going to lay a foundation for the X-Men franchise moving forward. And so I think if you are an X-Men fan, you definitely want to pay attention to these two books that are coming out. I think it's like, what is it, late July through I think September. These two books will potentially lay a foundation that will serve the X-Men well into the future. And again, my other point was that what he will do in that book and possibly in the subsequent title will lay the foundation for what the MCU decides to do. And the Russo brothers have basically said, that they like this guy's work. They've made statements about coming back and redoing Secret Wars. I think it was pretty clear from their comments that they were actually thinking about the original Secret Wars. But Jonathan Hickman also did a Secret Wars. And so you never know whether they're going to go with the original from back in the day or try to leverage some of the more recent stuff. Because if you look at a little bit of what the Russo brothers do, it's like a mixture of old and new and then their own creative thinking, and that of other people on the team, of course, right? But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And so as I was thinking about this, because my other point was about speculation, we could see some movement in what happens with the House of 10 and the Power of 10, right? You could see some movement with some of those books, again, depending upon what is being introduced, whether there's first appearances and all that kind of stuff. You could see some speculation that happens with those books if they do lay the foundation for the future and if they are leveraged for the MCU. And if you think about it, what Jonathan Hickman did with Infinity, because some of the stuff was pulled from there. That's where Corvus Glaive was actually introduced in that free comic book day that came out. That book saw a little spike at certain parts. Then also New Avengers number 8. New Avengers number 8, I think, was a Hickman piece, a project. That is actually where the Black Order first appears. That was the partial team appearance of the Black Order. That book is also doing a little something. Same thing with New Avengers number 9 as well. Couple of books, the Infinity number 1 variant is actually doing something as well. So just my point is that if the thing goes the way that I think that it could go, we may add, whether you were talking about being a speculator or just being a comic book fan, you might want to pick up those books. And I'm not sure about all the variants and all that other crazy stuff, but it might behoove all of us to actually pick those books up because they could make some magic a little bit later on. So Lee Atkins says, "What's up, Reggie? Finally, X-Men, finally talking my language." Oh man. So I'm scrolling through some of these comments here and seeing what you guys are saying. Interesting, but it is Sully 2 King says, "I think it's interesting thing, but it does seem like another reboot." Oh no, it absolutely is a reboot on top of a reboot on top of a reboot. Completely agree with that. Completely agree. But basically what this guy is saying is we are going to reinterpret, reimagine the X-Men franchise. And it's important for everyone, including the creative teams that are actually working on these projects in the future, to understand that this is the new foundation. Those are very bold and broad statements for him to make, right? And they've also, I think he alluded to in some interviews, that they are right now envisioning 2 different waves. They have, I think, started work on wave 1 of like the creative stuff, and then they are also hiring people for the wave 2. So yes, it seems like another reboot because it absolutely is. But I think what's different here is that this one seems to be potentially a more permanent reboot, right? Where they are actually signaling that this is going to be a long-term foundation that is being created here. And I think that that might be, at least for me in my interpretation, what is a little bit different. So we will see. I got news for you about new X-Men movie for 2020. It's coming in a different time zone, different in many ways, but I have a new Iron Man from a different. You could be right about that as well, because they've already introduced this idea of the multiverse. So you could see some of that. I haven't seen anything official, but I don't know that that conflicts with what I'm describing right now. Right. That all of those things that you're saying and all the things that I'm saying could also be very true. And I think that's also what the fun is of some of the speculation stuff of what is going to happen with the MCU, is that we could all be right and we could all be wrong. I think that's what makes it cool. So Lost Comic Junkie is saying he needs Omega Red in here, and Omega Red in the X-Men #4. Oh yeah, yeah. He's saying he needs that book. Sorry, I was misreading that thing. Chris Barrett says Storm is most likely going to be the first X-Men we could see. I could see that happening. I could see that happening. Jake says he just got a nice copy of Giant Size X-Men #1. Congrats on that. Jablu is saying good perspective, which is why I always say read the comics, read them. So there is no ranting years later. Yeah, agree with that. Yeah, Jake is basically suggesting here that they may start with a Wolverine solo movie. It'll be interesting to see where they start. I part of me, says that they're going to start with the more popular characters first, and I would say that that probably would not be Rogue. It would probably be Wolverine if you were going to pick one. But the MCU also potentially won't jump out there with a solo movie right off the back for the X-Men. They may actually have it as a post-credit scene, or actually have that character appear in another movie before they actually have a solo movie. And so to that point, it could almost be any character, right? Because I mean, let's be honest, Iron Man wasn't the most popular character and wasn't the most obvious choice for them to actually use to start the MCU to begin with. But we can't assume that they're going to pick an equally unpopular character to introduce the next phase, right? So I don't know if that line of logic actually holds true. But if you already have a pretty decent movie with a couple of established characters in it, you can actually slide in a less popular character into that movie, which then points to some other things that are happening down the road, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they choose to introduce the mutants into the MCU, because there's a ton. There literally is an infinite number of ways. Like there is a multiverse. There is an infinite number of ways that this stuff can be done. Bello says it is bittersweet. They are finally making another good X-Men arc, and now they're rebooting, and thankfully it's Hickman, so he's excited and bummed. Again, when I was first digesting this thing over like the last day or so, I had mixed emotions about how to feel about it, because on one hand you're like, okay, it's Hickman, and Hickman does really good work. He's revolutionized the Avengers and also the Fantastic Four, but you just brought the X-Men back to some degree, right? You just took them through some crazy stuff, and now you're supposed to be setting them on a good course, and now you're just rebooting that reboot. And so it's kind of, I agree that it is a little bittersweet. What will make it sweeter is if they are actually telling the truth, if they are actually going to do this thing and do it right and do it long term. That is what will make the difference between the bittersweet sentiment that many of us actually feel right now. If it is a more long term thing and that trajectory is clear and it is good, I don't think that anyone's going to complain. But if they reboot the reboot, that'll be a bigger problem, So Adrian is saying, thanks for the help on Instagram about CGC. You are very welcome. Santiago, you are very welcome with that. JD says, what story arc truly X-Men would be the one to choose that hasn't been done? Yeah, who knows? I mean, and I think for his initial Power of 10, House of 10, it's going to be, I think, a reinterpretation, a reimagination of the origin. So I don't know that he's going to go down any particular story arc, but maybe what you're referring to is what the movie would be. And that is tough to say. That is, I mean, you could do, I've been recently reading Extinction Agenda from the 90s with Cameron Hodge. that was actually a pretty interesting with the whole Genosha thing and the whole slave thing and the mutates and that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think that we've seen that. We saw Days of Future Past. We saw X-Men First Class, but I don't know that we saw Extinction Agenda. And that was a quintessential 90s X-Men story arc, that led into Strife and all that other stuff and spun out of X Factor and, everything that came from that. New Mutants. So who knows? Who knows? I think that, again, you have a very, very long history with the X-Men, and there could be something that could be leveraged there, or with what Jonathan Hickman is doing, that could be the new story that they decide to leverage. Again, he is going to be reinterpreting, reimagining what has already been done, and there could be some twists and turns there that we don't see that he might be able to leverage, that they then might be able to leverage and turn into a movie. So it'll be very interesting to kind of see what happens with this. Sully 2 King says, hope so. I'm tired of the reboots, brother. So am I. Mr. Q Comics says, how many covers? So because it is the House of 10 and the power of 10, I think that we're looking at an exponential number of variants. I think we're looking at an exponential number of variant covers that are going to come out from each one of these every single week that a book is released. There is no telling what they are going to do. From Heroes to Icons says, 5 years after the snap, the world powers will probably start to have their own super teams. Who knows what will come from that? Who knows what will come from that? There you go. And that could be how they choose to do it, right? Because if you guys remember, there was that whole race to create the next super soldier, which is kind of where Wolverine came from. With what was it, Department H or something like that. So you very well could see that kind of scenario play out where it is a country level race to develop superhero teams to combat threats to national security. That could be a viable approach to actually have some of this stuff happen. Lee Atkins says, Brood, bring back the Brood. That'll be a beast. Extinction is good. Yeah, man, there's a lot of really fantastic story arcs out there from the X-Men that could be leveraged, both large and small, that can be blown up and made into larger movies. So we'll see. X-Men will be introduced as mutants. That will be a common term used in the MCU before they start using X-Men. I would completely agree with that. I would not disagree with that. Lost Comic Junkie says, do the Brood. Psylocke can be an early introduction. Psylocke is hot, so bring that on. Scrolling through couple of comments here. Brandon, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. Brandon is shouting out Weapon X. Yes, please. The original Weapon X series, bring that, because that would be the bomb. They did it in one of the X-Men movies. It was abbreviated, right? It was just that little bit of the scene there where he broke out into the Canadian forest or the wilderness. But that could be a cool story arc. And again, that could be one way that they introduce it, is that there is this, and I've seen this theory out there, that it is a country level race to make the next super soldier. Canada does their thing via the Weapon X program that begets Wolverine, and they unlock his mutant potential while he's undergoing the adamantium bonding to his bones, et cetera, et cetera. That is a viable theory that is out there, that they can certainly go down that road. And I'm a big fan of Weapon X from back in the day. That was one of my favorite stories. Clay is shouting out Age of Apocalypse. Chris Barrett is saying Weapon X program. Again, I think that any and all of these are viable possibilities. You just never know what could happen. Scrolling through from Heroes, JetBlue is saying, from Heroes to Icons, I think you are right on the money. In fact, we may see Winter Guard and Black Widow as a throwback scene. Very good. There's a couple of really good comments here, so we will see. So again, I just wanted to kind of throw this scenario out there because people were asking me my thoughts on the reboot of the X-Men. And again, I have very mixed emotions about some of this stuff because, again, it is, everyone's tired of the reboots. Everyone's tired of the new number one that you have to get right. You're tired of the misdirections and the restarts and the false starts and all that kind of stuff. But again, I think the theory is that if Jonathan Hickman has sold Marvel leadership on the importance of doing this reboot, and if he does the reboot the right way, And if the Russo brothers, do what it is that they've done in the past, which is to leverage some of Jonathan Hickman's work, I think what we could potentially be seeing here is the future of the mutants, the future of X-Men, might actually come to light very soon in the pages of House of X. I'm sorry, House of 10 and Power of 10. So I'm excited. I am now excited to actually read these two titles because I wasn't before, but I am actually excited to read these. And I'm hoping that this dude actually kills it. I'm hoping that he absolutely kills these two titles and that we actually get the X-Men team for the new age, that makes sense, that feels good, that feels right. That is my hope. And then my additional hope is that we actually see that great comic come to life in some shape or form in the MCU. So we will see. We will see what happens. Ooh, somebody just shouted out House of M. Ooh. Well, first, to do House of M, you would first have to introduce mutants for the mutants to go away, right? For you to then be able to do that. So I think that it's one that we will probably see down the road. JD is shouting out A versus X. Yes, please. Yes, please. One of my other favorite story arcs is Avengers versus X-Men. If you guys haven't read that, oh my goodness, it is a super dope story arc. And what's crazy about it is that I think it's the plot or the story, I can't remember. It was done by so many different writers. Jonathan Hickman, Brian Michael Bendis were in there, a couple of other people, and then each one of them kind of took turns writing one of the issues. And so, oh man, Avengers versus X-Men could be the bomb. And you have a couple of Avengers that are probably going to be changed up. You could throw in some new Avengers in there. I mean, there's a couple of really cool things that could be done with this. Who is that? Films is saying A to V would be a good finale to phase 5 or 6. So the question is, what are they going to build up to, right? They seem to be building up to a very big event. So, I mean, you could build up to Secret Wars. You could start with Secret Wars, maybe, right? You could build up to Avengers versus X-Men as a way to introduce them. But that just seems like a really long build up for that kind of battle. But who knows? Who knows what's going to be possible, Phase 4 seems to almost be like a throwaway phase. I think that's what people are looking at it as. It's almost like a gap filler, right? That's supposed to be lasting like 3 years or so, where they're basically going to potentially do some foundational stuff. And then I think you're probably right. You're probably going to need some kind of big event for phase 5. And we'll see what it is. I think that's what is really great about this is that you have 80 years of fantastic history, fantastic storytelling to be able to leverage. JD is over here just shouting out crazy stuff. He's like Secret Wars, Invasion, Annihilation. Oh, JD, I love you, brother. JD is throwing out all kinds of crazy stuff. And what's cool is that I be down with any of it. Chris Barrett is saying Avengers versus X-Men versus Defenders. Make it a real fight. Bro, bring it on. I mean, the Defenders are going to get mollywopped. I'm going to just throw it out there. The Defenders would get mollywopped because you're talking street level brawlers against my X-Men. Oh my goodness. Thor alone could take out the Defenders. So it'll still come down to Avengers versus X-Men in the end. Alex says his first live stream from the UK. Alex, how you doing, brother? It is good to see you from across the pond. I'm glad you were able to make it out to the live stream. We are just on here, man, just pontificating, have a little fun about all the news that has come out recently about the reboot of our beloved X-Men franchise with Jonathan Hickman taking up the helm and basically laying down a foundation possibly for the foreseeable future and then possibly into the MCU. I think that all of this stuff is fun, man, because you just never know. You never know. And again, we can do this all day long and still be wrong. Which Defenders? I assumed he was talking about, JD, the Defenders from the Netflix series. But I think there are a couple of different Defenders teams. So if we're talking Netflix series, street level brawlers, it is a done deal. They will get mollywopped. Now, if you're talking other Defenders teams, like with Hulk and some other heavy hitters, that could be a different ball game. Yeah, so No, Jablu is Jablu 68. I think that's how you said it. Is although it's off topic, nothing's off topic. He says, don't forget they're going to reintroduce the Fantastic Four. Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to that. That could be cool. Oh, the Starjammers. I love some Starjammers from back in the day. Cody is shouting out OG Defenders. X-Men 9. Is that you talking Uncanny X-Men 9? What's X-Men 9? I don't know that one off the top of my head. X-Men 9. Let me type that in. Type that in. Let's see. I'm in Key Collector app. Type that in, see what you're talking about. Let's see what that one is. Oh, nope, it's not gonna find it. Sorry, I was in the wrong screen. X-Men. Welcome to a live stream, people. We are impromptu here, making stuff up as we go along. That's pulling up the wrong thing. Key Collector app just let me down. Where is 63? There we go, 63. Somebody probably has already typed it in there by now, and I just missed it. Oh, okay. So who is it that said that? Cody Logan is shouting out, get X-Men number 9. Now, X-Men 9 is actually the first meeting of the Avengers and the X-Men. It is the first battle of Avengers versus X-Men, and is also the first appearance of Lucifer. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a screen grab of that. Cody, my friend, thank you for the tip, because I was not aware that that was an important issue, key issue with the X-Men. So shout out to that. No one buy it. I get first dibs on eBay on X-Men number 9. No one buy that. First fight is number 9. Comic Junkie just shouted it out. Joey said he just left his LCS. Did he miss anything? No, brother. We're just over here speculating that what could happen is that Jonathan Hickman lays the foundation with the X-Men that actually gets adapted to the MCU. So the thought was the same way that like Infinity and some of the other titles that Jonathan Hickman has worked on that have seen a spike because they've pulled in some of his writing into the movies. You could theoretically see that same kind of thing happen for the House of 10 and Power of 10, which are the 2 new series coming out written by Jonathan Hickman. I actually added both of those to my pull list yesterday. I sent my LCS a message and was like, can you please pull these for me when they drop? So the Avengers, Caleb says the Avengers versus the X-Men versus the Expendables. No Major X. Major X will not be seen. Cody, yeah, it did look to be a little cheap, that X-Men number 9. It looks like a high grade is pretty expensive, but the other grades seem to be fairly reasonable. So I'm definitely going to look into that. Secret Wars 2015 coming to Galactus, Uncanny X-Men, Kang the Conqueror, Latveria, Doctor Doom. So many possibilities is what Clint Barton is shouting out as to things that could be leveraged for future MCU movies. Yeah, I would agree that there is a ton of really good things out there. You think Rob Liefeld will sneak in Major X in there? He needs some cash. Now he's good. He's selling a bunch of his first and second issues on eBay that are signed by him. So I'm sure he's making some good money over there. So we have a shout out from Brandon here saying Tales of Suspense 49 is Iron Man versus Angel, first fight between A versus X. We'd have to look at the years on that one. And the question is, are we talking teams? Are we talking individuals? But we have a shout out for Tales of Suspense 49 if anybody wants to look that one up. When I say Defenders, he means the Netflix team plus Punisher and Namor. Yeah, clock clean. Chris, the Defenders will get their clocks clean. I'm just saying now. Well, isn't that the same Defenders? Isn't that the same Defenders team from like the early 2000s? I want to say. I think that's the same one. Would I play Major X in the MCU? What does the paycheck look like? I can be Judge Dredd. I could be Cyclops. I can be Major X for the right amount of money. No problem. Oh man. All right. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and get myself out of here. I just wanted to jump on here real quick because this was like swirling around in my mind and I was sitting here trying to decide, do I do a pre-recorded video and then I release it, or do I go live? It's like, I forget it. I'm going to just go live and talk a little bit about this. So there are 70 of you guys in here hanging out with me. I'm like, what is today? On a Thursday afternoon? I definitely appreciate you guys. I love doing these live streams just because it's an opportunity to mix it up with you guys. Ramos says no, the right amount of dough. No, he says no right amount of dough. No, bro, I disagree. I have a number. I'll play Major X for certain. There is a number. Trust me when I tell you. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with me for just a little bit. Stay tuned. I have a pre-recorded video that is dropping at 3:30. No clue what the video is right now because I am completely impromptu. No clue what that video is, but it's probably going to be a good one. I also did like 3 videos yesterday. So if you guys haven't checked out some of that stuff, I definitely encourage you to do so. And if you guys need me, feel free to reach out to me at Regie Collects on Instagram and reggiecollects@gmail.com. I'll see you guys.